Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Trail Mix, where the nuts might be a little stale, but the company is always fresh.
Craig Crawford here, retired journalist working for nothing but the truth and Social Security checks. And today we're doing open mic, see who shows up. And nobody shows up. We got some things to talk about. I'm going to open up here with some headlines I was looking at this morning. Kind of curious to see how this East Wing story is playing around the country. Trump blowing up the East Wing, and it's making a few headlines out of what you might call the middle of the pack newspapers. It's not just a Washington story. Here we had Arizona. Here's Florida Times Union, Jacksonville. Trump says construction of ballroom, music to my ears. And we got another one here. Oh, the Gazette. Where's that? I don't know. White House East Wing to be torn down. Here's the St. Paul front page. The end of the East Wing. I guess it's a fair question whether this is a DC story or not. But it seems to me, in terms of like we saw with these headlines, it's showing up a little bit mainstream, not just a Washington, D.C. story. And one sign of that is Inside Edition actually did a thing on it. Oh, I see Carolyn. Hello there.
Hi, how are you?
All right. I'll just get started here looking at some headlines around the country on that East Wing getting demolished story. It's more than a DC story. It seems to be catching on around the country. People care about their White House.
Well, and it sounds like an awful lot of money to be spending at this time. When people are getting paychecks, federal employees are not getting paychecks. And
of course, the argument is the taxpayers aren't paying for it. But then if you look at the list of donors, which
we are paying for it.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the donor, I was just looking at it at the donor list here. These are the donors, and there was something most all of them have in common. They need federal favors for a whole bunch of reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, Amazon, people don't realize Amazon has something like 15 billion, I think it is, in cloud contracts with the federal government.
Yeah.
Apple, the same thing. Caterpillar's worried about tariffs. I mean, you can go down the list here and see all kinds of connections from companies these are companies contributing to that ballroom. Marianne Adelson, she's the one that gave $40 million to his campaign. And then there are a couple down. There's one down here. I always remember this guy, this odd name, Cameron Winklevoss, and his wife Tyler Winklevoss.
Who are they?
They are crypto kings, crypto royalty. They are heavy into the crypto world that is making an absolute fortune from Trump right now with his deregulation of the crypto business. But anyway, so it's not free. Maybe taxpayers aren't directly paying, but anyway.
Ultimately, we will.
Yeah. So here I've got our buddy. Here's what he said. You and I have stayed on top of this story for some time, and the U.S. attorney back in the day when when Epstein got his sweetheart deal, and we talked about this when it first got started, and we finally got the transcript of his testimony, and what it looks to me like is it's just another case of blaming the victims. He's saying the victims weren't strong enough to prosecute Epstein, essentially. Or did you get a chance to look at the transcript?
I did look at some of it.
Yeah, it's like 170 pages. And
my question, and I don't know whether there might have been something in the transcript about it. My guess is that Acosta never talked to a single victim.
That's a good question.
Yeah. I mean, did he ever have any? Did he ever lay eyes on them until he saw them in their news conference? Did he speak to them? Did he ask them about what happened? My guess is no. I mean, and it would be rare if a U.S. attorney did speak to the victims, but he's talking about that, they were unreliable and didn't want to cooperate. But how does he know?
Absolutely. That's such a great question. I want to go back. I'm going to go back through Jasmine Crockett's questioning of him in that House oversight hearing. She's the Democrat who really leaned on the victim stuff and really tried to pin him down on this. But I don't recall if she asked that question, but that would be the one to ask for sure.
What I want to know is what the lead prosecutor on the case would have said. Anna Villafranca or something. I'd really like to hear what she has to say. But on the other hand, I would hate to subject her to that. So I think she did her job very honorably and professionally and respectfully. And to try to drag her through this mud at this point, I think would be unjust. But
well, he did. Jasmine Crockett did get. She right off the top went into that prosecutor and her recommendations, and he wiggled and waggled, and she finally pinned him down and made him say that yes, her recommendation was for a prosecution of Epstein that he ultimately rejected. He did finally, but it took a lot to get him to acknowledge that, which of course was common knowledge anyway.
Yeah,
I mean,
and as the U.S. attorney, he's certainly within his right to do that, but he needed to own it. He needed to own it and not, trash the victims and saying it was because of them.
Yeah, and you had talked a lot about the Office of Professional Regulation.
No, Office of Professional Responsibility.
I always get that wrong. Yeah. Oh, I'll just say OPR, like everybody else. but where they actually concluded what was their wording? They actually concluded that he had acted irresponsibly or poor judgment. But the funny thing is, he actually used that as his defense. I couldn't quite follow it because he brought it up several times. Well, the OPR didn't say this or didn't say that. And he acted as if that they had exonerated him.
Well, they did not say that he had committed professional misconduct, right. But there's a lot of wiggle room before you get to that. They clearly said that he exercised poor judgment. And quite frankly, I would not want to have that on my record, that I had exercised poor judgment in a matter. It is still a criticism. It is clearly a criticism of him, but it does fall short of a finding of professional misconduct.
Oh, we got Jack here. Hey, Jack.
Hey.
Hello.
In other words, they said he's a freaking idiot.
Exactly. Well, an idiot might not know that they did something wrong. He knew. So he's also a liar.
He's a willful idiot.
Exactly.
Like willful ignorance.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were just going over. I mean, the background here is this was the U.S. attorney who decided not to federally prosecute Epstein and later got on Trump's cabinet in his first term as Secretary of Labor, I guess it was, and then had to quit when it all came out that he had played this key role in basically letting Epstein off the hook, at least federally. Your favorite subject, Jack. I remember the first time I brought up Epstein in one of our chats, you just said, I don't care.
Well, I really don't. It's one of those, and it's probably why you should never create anything for me, because nobody else will watch.
Well, I do like your taste in music. So,
well, it was. I can't remember. It was one of those groups that I was following, and they would do the Epstein stuff and get all kinds of comments, and then or something similar to that. And then they would do something with public policy or foreign policy, and it'd like nobody would talk. And I found the public policy and the foreign policy interesting, and I didn't find the other stuff very interesting at all. But that's just me. It's what happens when you educate an old hillbilly.
Well, Carolyn, the transcript didn't yield anything earth-shaking. Of course, we didn't expect Acosta's testimony to the House oversight that took them 2 weeks to release the transcript. But I don't know why, because it didn't really hurt Trump in any particular way. But the key thing to me was that he essentially was blaming the victims all over again. His point of view was like the old school on women who are abused. It's their fault. They have to be the ones to prove it, or it's not true. That's kind of was his attitude.
Well, and also in reading one of the sites that you sent me, it seemed he also said that the defense attorneys had acted unethically. He did not say that I don't recall what his words were, but he said that borderline unethical. So he was pretty much also blaming the defense attorneys. And the defense attorneys were doing their job. And I think my personal opinion is that they just ran right over Acosta. And Acosta clearly had political ambitions. And there were heavy hitters on that defense team. And Acosta wanted to be in their favor. That's my opinion.
I think Alan Dershowitz was one of them.
Yeah, Dershowitz and the guy who was the Whitewater prosecutor, special prosecutor. What was his name? Whitewater?
No.
The Clinton investigation. Whitewater, you remember, from Arkansas?
Yeah, are you talking about not Kenneth Starr?
Yeah, Ken Starr. He was also on the...
I didn't know that.
Yes.
He was one of Epstein's lawyers?
Yep.
Well, I'll be damned.
Yeah.
Well, ain't that rich? I mean, he persecuted Bill Clinton for sex with
the blue dress. Wasn't it blue or was it green dress?
Yeah. And then defends the biggest pedophile ring in history. Wow. No. I did not know that.
Well, I don't begrudge somebody for representing any defendant. No matter how unsavory the defendant is. But, still, I think that, he was a heavy hitter. And Acosta at that time had political aspirations.
Well, and I always like to get back to my clip here of when Acosta, when this all came out and Acosta was in Trump's cabinet, we still don't know how he got that job. He wasn't really qualified to be Secretary of Labor. And
that doesn't stop him.
Exactly. Look at the people who are in the cabinet now.
Yeah. Oh, Jamie's got her Halloween avatar. Look there.
The Wicked Witch of the West.
That's me.
Well, I'm just going to play here because I always have to tie Acosta back to Trump, which isn't hard to do. And I love in this clip, this is when Acosta had to quit the Trump cabinet when it got found out that he had played this key role in letting Epstein off the hook. And Trump talks about that it was a good deal. I would listen to that part of this clip.
A great labor secretary, not a good labor secretary. He's done a fantastic job. He's a friend of everybody in the administration. And I got a call this morning early from Alex. And I think he did a very good job yesterday. Under a lot of pressure, he did a fantastic job. And he explained it. And he made a deal that people were happy with. And then 12 years later, they're not happy with it. You'll have to figure all of that out. But the fact is, he has been a fantastic Secretary of Labor. And
yeah, deal. They were all everybody was happy with that deal, and then they weren't happy. Okay, right.
Well,
That's why I focus on Acosta, because I still want to know how that man ended up on Trump's cabinet with no qualifications to be Secretary of Labor. And we know why, because he let Epstein off the hook.
well, I think Carolyn pointed it out. He kissed every important Republican's butt to get that done. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I put it a little cruder than she did.
But Acosta's never been the main feature of this Epstein saga, but it's one I just never have been able to let go of. So I had to get one more crack at it.
Well, it's one of those things that if it ever does come out, it's going to be kind of interesting, the names that pop up. You know, we've already got Prince Andrew, and we suspect that Trump's in there.
You know, I've been watching a lot of BBC because I've been tracking their coverage of Ukraine and everything, and in the middle of it, but they are just obsessed with Prince Andrew. I mean, and I really think the British media is not going to rest, and it's not going to stop until Prince Andrew is actually charged with something. I mean, I think there's a pretty powerful movement over there to actually bring charges against Andrew.
Well, the problem they have with that is that his crimes were committed outside the country. So.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, the thing that they're focusing on that was criminal is that this stuff about that he, and this did happen over there, that he solicited these internet trolls and detectives to look up dirt on Virginia, the girl that, or at that time a girl, when he abused her, and somehow that, you know, the legal experts in Britain are saying that that could be charged as a crime. I don't know the legal particulars on it, but that's kind of what they're focusing on, is essentially, once again, the cover up. That's what he could be charged with, is breaking some laws and attempting the cover up.
What are they saying about the destruction of the East Wing over here? I like that people are starting to call it the Epstein ballroom.
Yeah. And I was just looking at, I pulled up some, I'm always interested. I have some newspapers around the country that the good old, that I get front pages from, and you know, like Arizona Daily Star here. I like to look at newspapers from around the country that are kind of middle of the pack, and you know, they've got it right there on their front page, and then the Jacksonville, Florida Times Union. I mean, when a DC story makes the front pages of newspapers like this, that's a pretty good gauge that it's breaking through. It's
Well,
not
it
just a
started
DC
from
story.
him saying it was only going to be separate and connected to the White House, to it was just going to be the facade of the East Wing, to now it's the total East Wing is gone.
Yeah, the whole thing. Yep.
I think
And
it's a
of
great
course, that
picture.
wipes out the area for the First Lady and women being welcomed into the White House. So he's insulting about as many people as it's possible to insult with one building.
Yeah.
Well, I think the simple thing is this, is that he's tearing down the White House.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stick to that message, and then tie it to everything around him. You know, I just ran across here in Missouri, they did an article about all the rural postal services are going away.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So much for Ben Franklin's idea.
So that, you know, if you're out here in the country somewhere and you depend on the post office, you're just out of luck. Maybe they'll deliver the mail today and maybe they won't.
Huh.
And so I think there's a lot of things that Democrats could be using out here, and just use that picture to tie it into what Trump's tearing up.
Yeah, you combine that with him, circulating the video of him wearing a crown and flying a jet and dumping crap on Americans. I mean, that's another image to pair with tearing down the White House. But I also thought it was interesting here in my effort to try and gauge when stories break through. I also look at these tabloid TV shows like Inside Edition. And
it's a jarring sight. The East Wing of the White House getting demolished. You can see right into the offices. The demolition sparking outrage today. On TV, Trump's biggest critics are weighing in.
That is not your building. You don't own that.
It's grotesque. Just grotesque. It's history being torn to shreds.
But the president is unapologetic. In fact, he's...
See, when Inside Edition spends 2 minutes on a Washington story, that's a story that's broken through to the
Yeah, that's almost like a sex story.
Yeah,
I mean, this is you don't mess with our history. We get irritated. That's the way it is out there. It's something anybody can understand.
Yeah, that's the key.
What he said. That's the people's house. He's just a tenant, and we don't let tenants tear things up, or we don't keep men if they tear it up. I can tell you that as a landlord.
Well, that's why I put up all of those figures relating it to the Buckingham Palace ballroom.
Yeah.
Because what he is constructing is the size of the White House itself.
It's larger, isn't it? I think it's larger than the White House.
Well, possibly taller, but the square footage, if he's still keeping the West Wing and the White House principle, but he's wiping out all of the East Wing. And then it's the square footage is up on Craig's site for all of the measurements, but it's ridiculous.
Mitch. And the list of donors to supposedly paying for it, you've got to turn right around and ask, what are they getting out of it? Nobody donates for nothing, especially something like that. They're getting something, and odds are it has something to do with a tariff.
Well, actually, Carolyn and I were looking at this earlier. That I've got, well, for starters, this one right here. These I always remember this name, the Winklevosses. These are
Yeah.
These are crypto billionaires who are
Okay.
making I mean, you can't even count how much money they are making from Donald Trump right now over his deregulation of the crypto business. But you come back up on here, and like you were saying about tariff, I mean, here you got Caterpillar. Yeah, I imagine they'd like a little exemption from the tariffs, wouldn't you think, for getting parts? That sort of stands to reason. And then you come up here to, I mean, Amazon and its $12 billion contract with the Defense Department for cloud services. I know Apple's gets a bunch of that as well. And you know, Lockheed Martin. Oh yeah, that's free. Yeah. We're not going to have to pay. We're going to have to spend more for expensive jets now. I mean, it's just like this whole idea that this somehow excuses it.
Yeah, every one of those is either needs tariff relief or they have major contracts with the government.
Yeah. So, I mean,
which means we're paying for it. We're just not calling it taxes that are spending.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing, is that people keep saying here is like, I got this one commenter on my YouTube video about this, talking about how presidents built Oval Office, added a second floor, swimming pool, they brought Carter. Well, there's the difference is in each of those cases, like I point out here, answering this guy is in each of those cases, you had three entities, the preservation people at the Capitol the White House Historical Association, the Capitol Planning Commission, I think it's called, and then there's a third group. And okay, yeah, the president doesn't have to get all their approvals necessarily, but that's always been the case. I mean, that they go through those entities and get their responses, submit blueprints, all those things, and none of that was done. And in all these cases they keep citing about previous presidents, we went through those. I mean, before those were created, I think some of the presidential changes were done unilaterally, but for 100 years that hadn't been the case. This is different.
And
they were minor.
The first family was always able to redecorate the family quarters to their needs and everything, but not just tear down anything without someone saying okay.
Well, or put in a bowling alley or a media room or things like that on different ones.
Right. I was sorry they got rid of the swimming pool, but the press corps got a nice place out of it.
Well, now that's the swimming pool, the one that Roosevelt used. That's where they basically put a platform over it and moved the press in, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nixon did that.
No.
And I think that was one that was not that wasn't popular, but he went through the channels, and of course Kennedy had made good use of the swimming pool, as we recall.
Well, Kennedy, the tales they tell about Johnson are even worse. Not
with the swimming pool.
He would have meetings when he was swimming in the nude.
Oh well, yeah. Well, he would sit in that toilet off the side. That they had that little toilet off the side of the Oval Office there, and he'd hold meetings in there. Doris Kearns Goodwin's talked about that she would sit out. She'd be sitting outside the bathroom, and he was sitting on the toilet. And they were having a meeting.
And he was always good for a laugh, with the measurement of his pants. being too tight in the crotch.
Oh yeah, have you ever heard that audio tape?
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh yeah, where he
From
calls
the
his
front to
tailor.
the bunghole.
Oh man. He instructs his tailor on how to make his trousers for him and give plenty of room for his butthole. And other things.
Well, yeah, Craig, I might have to jump off. I've got people coming, so I will talk to you guys soon. Yeah.
You bet.
Have a great day.
You too, Carolyn. Bye.
So long. And my friend Joe from Virginia's getting out of a meeting soon. He's going to come on and talk to us about Virginia. He's a Democrat, long time veteran of Democrat politics in Virginia. I wanted to talk to him about that race because we got these 2 governor's races coming up in 12 days that are going to be, they're always bellwethers. They always kind of sneak up on us. As, we talk about the midterms, but there's the off year. It's like off Broadway where Virginia and New Jersey, and they do, historically tell us a little bit about what may happen. A hint in the midterms in terms of the enthusiasm of the parties and so on.
Probably, I don't know if they're as much as they used to because Virginia has turned purple when they used to be pretty solid red.
Yeah,
but you would have a kind of a referendum in a red state and a referendum in a blue state. But both of them.
I looked it up. Trump lost Virginia 10 points in 2020 and lost it by 6 points in 2024. So he didn't gain much ground in Virginia.
Yeah. Well, that's up there around your world.
I see it. I see it on local. It's our local TV. I get all the commercials from Virginia and Maryland races. So I'm telling you, it's just saturation. The local news every night is nothing but ads right now from those races in Virginia. But yeah, Joe will get on here later and tell us what's up with that.
I used to book commercials around election time for the radio station. And that's pretty much when they made their nut to pay for the station operation, was during political seasons.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And they would gouge political candidates too. And that was the subject of, I had a friend in Georgia who just made himself a fortune as a lawyer for TV stations for advertisers suing TV stations for gouging them in political races. So he would represent.
There are certain laws
and they got huge settlements and they got laws passed about it and everything. But they were just really ripping off political candidates for many years.
No, there are very specific laws that you can only charge what the lowest cost is. But the way you get around that is by dividing it into drive time. So if they want the absolute lowest cost, they can book commercials up the yin yang for all night. But if they want in drive time, it's going to cost them.
Oh yeah,
because that's where the highest rates are. So,
now, Jack, did you end up going to a No Kings? You were talking about going to a No Kings.
No, it was, I'm so sweet. I was afraid I'd melt in the rain.
Oh, it rained. Oh yeah. The weather.
It was a little bit of thunderstorms and raining and stuff, but boy, they had a lot of people show up. Even with the rain. But they scheduled it over here where there wasn't any really good parking close. It was at a major intersection, but it was about the only parking would have probably got towed.
I got into a back and forth with a commenter on TikTok when I had posted my videos from it, and it was a black guy actually, and he wrote this comment. He says, these protests were only old white people. And I said, well, what exactly is wrong with that? I mean, if that was even true, it wasn't, but it's like, what's your point? You know, it's just old white people. Well, old white people are a lot of voters. I don't know what his point was, but he was trying to dismiss it that way.
Well,
the obvious question is, so why weren't you out there marching with them?
Well, he's a young black guy. I will say that I did notice, and then American University did some, obviously would have to be unscientific, but they made an effort on Saturday to survey the crowds here in DC. And they came up with a pretty big majority of the people were white people, and I think they said the median age was about 45. And I did notice that despite the fact that I forget the percentages in my neighborhood, we're about, I think, 20% white and the rest black, but I would say it was kind of the reverse, the crowd that I saw. So I don't know what's going on there. There was not a huge turnout of black people in Washington for this thing. I don't know what that would be about.
Well, I know in some areas they were afraid of ICE or the Proud Boys or whatever starting trouble.
Mm-hmm.
That might have kept some of the young people away.
See, I sometimes think our focus on protecting democracy and everything might not be the broad as important as it is, and we get emotional about it. I'm not sure for a lot of people, particularly if they're just trying to get food on the table, democracy's just not high on their list, of things to worry about. That was the thing about the No Kings protest. It kind of exclusively focused on that aspect of this whole fight, defending democracy.
They may need to change the focus to the whole pocketbook issues.
Yeah.
Because that's hitting everybody now.
Then you run the risk of you broaden out you make your list of grievances so broad, then you're not standing for anything. So it's like the Occupy Wall Street movement. I never did understand what they wanted, what their list was of what they wanted.
I think you can do the pocketbook stuff, but I think it's basically, it's a little like, and I don't know if I said this today or not, but I was thinking it, and I think I put it on the blog, is instead of talking about SNAP benefits, talk about old people and children.
Yeah.
This is, when I did our blog, and I took pictures, I made sure to get a lot of pictures of old ladies and little kids.
Yeah.
And you make this SNAP benefits, SNAP benefits is one of those terms that doesn't cause an emotional reaction.
And why did we change the name from food stamps? I mean, food stamps was why did we change that?
So that it would be SNAP benefits. So it's just exactly that. It's SNAP benefit. What's that? Well, no, you have to sit there and explain it for 5 minutes, and then after that, you can't get any anger stirred up.
Yeah, I think sometimes they change the name just to confuse people so that they quit complaining, I guess. That's what happened.
Is that like the cable company?
Yeah.
Every
they
one of them
changed the
changed
fees.
their name in the last 10 years.
Yeah. And well, and I remember when Tip O'Neill and Reagan did their deal to save Social Security, they increased the percentage that workers paid into Social Security. That's how they saved Social Security. It was a dramatic increase. And so they changed the name and in that same legislation. And at the time I thought, what's the point of that? Then I later on realized what the point was, because everybody knew on their paycheck it said FICA. And you knew FICA meant what you paid into Social Security. At least I did. And then they changed the name. I forget what they changed it to. So then it just sits there on your paycheck and you don't really know what it is, you know. And I think that's why they did that. They changed the name so people wouldn't complain as much.
Well, they, you know, with Social Security, of course, you don't realize half of the taxes that you're paying.
Yeah.
Because you just take what you're paying and you have to double it because that's what the true cost is.
Yeah.
And as a person who was self-employed most of my life, I've understood that because I had to pay the whole, I think, close to 14%.
Which is one of the reasons they won't lift the cap on it, because the employers object to having their half raised.
Mm-hmm. Oh, now wait a minute. Explain that to me. I don't believe I've heard this angle.
Well, the cap right now, what is it that the maximum income that you can earn and still have to pay Social Security? But the employee pays half and the employer pays half. Well, if they raise the cap, then
I see. Yeah, because I think the currently it's what, about 75,000. After that, you don't pay anything.
No, it's up.
It's higher than that now.
It's up close to 2, I think.
Oh,
not for sure.
And of course, the ultra wealthy don't pay it at all because their income isn't coming from employment.
Right.
You have to have pretty good income to hit the cap. I don't remember. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know why. Because we never had that much income.
Yeah.
We had pretty good income, but not that good.
So what you're saying is, so if somebody has to start paying Social Security if they raise the cap, then they would the additional Social Security they're paying, they'd only be paying half of it, and the employers would pay the other half.
Yeah,
right.
So that's what you're saying. That's what you're saying is why I never thought about that.
And we really do need some form of wealth tax, because the ultra wealthy aren't getting their money from a paycheck.
Yeah.
Well,
they're getting it from rollovers on investment and so on.
I think we really need to do is do away with capital gains, or redefine capital gains to what it originally was or should have been, which is like on the farm. If I kept a calf until it grew into a cow and sold the cow, I could get a capital gains because it was a productive asset. It should be something that's productive assets, not money. Because when I buy a stock, I'm basically, loaning money to a company, and it's more a loan than it is anything.
Right. I think there are 3 different kinds of wealth tax that have been tried. And one of them is what you were objecting to, Jack. And that one's pretty much said, forget it, this won't work. But I've forgotten what the other 2 were. I posted it at one point.
Well, we do a wealth tax on the state level.
With the sales tax or what?
Sure. No.
With property taxes.
Property tax. Oh yeah. Okay.
Or you used to have to, here in the state of Missouri, I remember back when I first started paying taxes and stuff, they had just done away with coming in your house and itemizing everything you had, the value of the stuff in your house. So like your jewelry and things like that.
Uh-huh.
and they did it just for property and, of course, your cars and boats and stuff like that.
I had a couple of polls I've been looking at today, getting into the shutdown. I mean, I think that's a pretty amazing number. That just another sign that Republicans are losing the shutdown. I mean, 53% blaming Republicans, and the thing is, if you look at independents in that same poll, it's up to 58% among just independents. So I mean, I can see why they are scrambling to get out of this now. I'm seeing that, and I can see why. These aren't good for them.
I don't even know why the Republicans try this.
It never works
every
out.
time they try it, and it doesn't make any difference if they're in control or they're not in control. They sit here and push policies that the American people don't want.
Yeah.
And once people start looking at the policies that they're willing to fight for, they go, well, this is stupid. We don't want this. And you go back to Clinton. Yeah, actually, I think you go back even farther anytime they've done this.
Yeah.
You put up a
I
whole list.
looked at I think there's been about 7 of varying degrees in length. And about the only one that I could find where you could say, well, and when you look at polling afterwards, and everything, about the only one where Republicans didn't lose it, that it was tied. They never outright won a shutdown. Period. You can't point to one. And I think I think I was thinking some of that. I think is their brand is anti-government, so they have built a brand on government not working, on shutting it down, on getting rid of it, on cutting it, I mean, they're anti-government. That's their brand. So when the government shuts down, it just stands to reason to blame the Republicans because they're the ones who don't want government to work.
We were talking about Josh Hawley the other day, and I said, he's starting to sound almost liberal. Josh Hawley is in St. Louis today fighting for the union workers.
Really?
He's running. He's doing something. I was just reading a little bit about it, that he is talking about a fair wage for workers.
Huh.
And he does several things like that, where I'm saying he's just almost like a misguided, liberal here.
He's pretty fascinating to me, actually. I think when you look at who has the best shot at inheriting the MAGA mantle, I'd put him in the running.
Yeah, I think so, but I don't think he can. I don't think he can put together the Republican coalition that Trump had. I think he can inherit the MAGAs, but he can't inherit that whole list of donors that we looked at.
Oh, the money. Oh, you mean
the money people? Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty anti-elite on that front. That's true.
I read that today, and I was sitting there going, I talked about it, and I couldn't come up with what he was doing that sounded liberal. And there he was. I think he's he's taken some positions that are a little bit contrary to Trump on some things, and
I think it's like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think they're all kind of looking at the post-Donald Trump era and trying to figure out, how to position themselves to inherit that mantle.
Well,
and maybe broaden their.
And I think for Marjorie Taylor Greene is, it's her getting in the first place was getting the money. Now she's just got to keep the keep her position. And that means making the local folks happy.
Yeah. Well, and when you look at her financial base, she doesn't need those big companies, those big donors to the ballroom.
No.
You know, she makes her money on the grassroots fundraising, and that makes her kind of independent. That's one reason that last speaker, the one they ran off, had such trouble with her, because his whole game was he controlled the big Fortune 500 donors, so he could control a lot of the Republican membership with that leverage. But he had no leverage over her because she didn't need that money.
Well, I think in her world, and probably in the local world here too, is the outside money gets you instant recognition. But once you get the recognition, you don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
It's more important to take care of the locals and not get them irritated than it is anything.
Now here's another poll I've been studying is, and I think this deserves a little more attention, because anytime you see movement, particularly short-term movement, and we are seeing movement here in party ID, where people say, when they're asked by a pollster, do you identify as a Democrat or Republican? And that has shifted noticeably from the beginning of this year. In Gallup, it was a tie to Democrats up 7, and Quinnipiac, a shift, not maybe as much. But that means something, because I went back and looked at past midterms a year out from past midterms, and that 7+ number for Democrats in Gallup is right where Democrats were in 2017 before they gained 40 seats in the House a year later. That's exactly where they were in that Gallup poll, up 7 a year out from the 2018 midterm. And similar on the Republican side, before Biden's midterm, Republicans were up in this self-ID number at about that same point, a year out from them taking back. I guess they took back the House and the Senate, didn't they, in 2020? But anyway, I just think, that is an indicator. I mean, maybe I'm just looking for crumbs to find good news for Democrats, but I think that's legitimate good news for Democrats.
Well, I think Democrats are doing okay right now. And probably because
if Democratic voters would just quit whining about them, that's what gets me, is if Democratic voters would just quit whining about their own leaders.
Well, I say they're doing okay because, it's the Republicans that are having to stand up and answer the questions.
Yeah.
The Democrats just have to say, well, we didn't do it.
Yeah.
And so, and hey, some days it feels like Trump is our secret weapon.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, but that tearing down the White House,
I think that's huge.
I think that is a picture that ought to go on a billboard in every county in the United States.
Well, and they know it, because first thing they did was put out a memo in the Treasury Department telling people to close their shutters and not take pictures, because that whole wall of the Treasury Department faces the East Wing.
Oh, yeah.
There's like 100 offices with a clear view of that demolition, and they put out a memo. I mean, so they knew those pictures were a problem.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you can't fly helicopters close enough to the White House to get some really good pictures.
that was one issue with the No Kings protest, as far as trying to get crowd estimates, is they weren't letting anybody fly overhead to take any pictures. The local news helicopters could not fly over the protest to show you that aerial shot we always see, And,
Right.
and I thought that was convenient. They managed to prevent that.
And then they tried to pass off another picture from like 2015 as being the meager people barely going to.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They got caught out on that one.
Well, I can tell you, my little neighborhood, we had these headwaters all over the city where neighborhoods would get together and then they'd all march toward the same place at the National Mall. It's kind of cool. I mean, the protest organizers around here have gotten it really down to a nice system where they organize group neighborhood gatherings at key locations. And of course, the nice thing is because Washington is on the spokes of a wheel, all the roads, so all the main roads lead to the same place, right downtown in the National Mall. So it's very. I was appreciating Lafayette the other day. That was very well designed for protesting.
Well, you have a great space to do it too. That's the problem here in Springfield is the last time they did it in the old downtown area, which is not a prominent area anymore. And now they went over here outside, farther south here on a major intersection so they could be seen better. But all they could do was be on the sidewalk, which I guess they lined 3 or 4 blocks worth of sidewalk with protesters on each side. So
is that right?
So it wasn't, like I said the other day, I was very surprised at who turned out. Because where they did it was they organized it to start about 2 or 3 blocks south of Missouri State University. So I expected to see an awful lot of college kids and a few old people scattered in amongst them, but it was just almost the other way around. It was a very broad cross section of Springfield.
Yeah, and mine here, Jamie and Blue got on with me when I was over there, and I would say we probably had about 1,000 on our own, conservative guess, and it was I was amazed how many young couples with kids in strollers, that I saw.
Well, I saw it. It looked to me like this was a middle class protest, and it was done. I guess, with middle class ethics, being nice.
Yeah.
I think most of the crowds really tried for fun, laughter, and being nice to each other.
Yeah. Well, what it really captured for me is, you remember that brief shining moment in the summer of 2024 when it was the politics of joy for about 6 weeks? And
yeah.
Remember that? I almost forgot. And it brought back some of that feeling, I thought. That
I am going to let you gentlemen talk to yourselves, and I will see you both later.
Okay.
Have a good time.
I was hoping my friend Joe would get on here from Virginia.
I'm curious about whether the women middle of the road can get elected.
Yeah, he's one of my. Whether who would get elected?
There's a couple of women running, I think, for governorships and so on that are looking.
Yeah. Well, that's right. There's a woman, the Democrats, a woman in New Jersey And then, of course, both women in the Virginia race, or both candidates
That
in
was,
the Virginia
yeah,
race.
that was where it was. I was going to say one of them was that both of them are women.
Right. Yeah.
They used to be, what is it I used to laugh about, this old rural county I grew up in, is once a woman won election in like county clerk, all of a sudden it became the women's job.
Yeah.
And women would run for it and get elected constantly.
We were just saying, Jamie, that both candidates in Virginia are women. So Virginia is getting its first woman governor no matter what.
Yeah, I was just vaguely following some commentary. Who is this Mikey, forgetting her last name, who's running?
In New Jersey or in Virginia?
I don't know whether it's
Spanberger's the Democrat in Virginia.
Who's in New York?
You mean New Jersey's the other governor's race coming up. And I forget that one. There's a woman, the Democrat in that race who's ahead is a woman.
I think the New Jersey one is the one I'm thinking about. But the Democrats have now run two really good women for the presidency and couldn't get it over that anti-woman hump. So I'm hoping that some of these women governors can step up to the plate.
Well, you're going to get one in Virginia no matter what.
Anyway, I'm gone. Bye.
Okay.
Take care, Jamie. Well, I've got some apples cooking. Going to make some apple butter.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, I went. I don't know. A couple of weeks ago, went up North Missouri and bought some canning grade apples, and been eating some of them, and then got to noticing I needed to get some of them worked up, or they were going to rot. So,
now how do you cook them?
I quarter them, core them, peel them, chop.
Oh, you do peel them?
Yeah, chop them up.
Well, that doesn't just turn them into applesauce when you peel them.
It's kind of an apple butter's applesauce with spices and sugar in it.
Oh, I didn't catch that. You're actually making apple butter.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now, my mom used to just quarter them and can them in a quart jar with a stick of cinnamon and a couple of cloves and a little sugar. And I don't know exactly how she did it, but some of the apples don't cook up some apples turn to applesauce real easy, and some of them keep the thing. And she would can those up, and that was our dessert. We didn't get ice cream often, but we got those canned apples.
I baked apples, cored them and put honey in them, and baked them recently.
Yeah, they do. When you go to some of these fall festivals around, they do what they call an apple dumpling, which is basically a half an apple wrapped up in cored and wrapped up in pie dough.
Oh yeah,
with cinnamon and sugar on them, and then you bake it and put a bunch of whipped cream on it. It's pretty good.
I just made some killer chili in the last couple of days.
Oh yeah.
That's a rolling. I sometimes spend 2-3 days making chili. Yeah, I'll make a batch and I think, well, it needs this, it needs that. Yesterday, I decided it needed some things, and I wanted poblano peppers. I like those kind of peppers in chili, and a couple other things. So I just got online and ordered. I'd already made the chili the day before, and and I decided I'm going to add this to it. And so I got online and ordered a flash delivery from Safeway, so I could add some more things to it. And I'm on about my third batch now.
Yeah, I cook quite a bit. In fact, I grow them in my garden, the poblano peppers.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, because
I like
what I found is they give you the flavor of a jalapeno. And I've got a couple of sisters that just can't handle hot at all.
Yeah.
So I can cook something with them and they can eat it, and I can always add hot sauce.
Yeah. Well, I wanted something. I might have gotten jalapenos, but I wanted something milder because those Adobe chipotle peppers and Adobe sauce. I had a can of those, and in the first batch I made, I put the whole can in there, and I forgot that the recipe that I'd always use for that is you just pick out like one, you know, and I put the whole can in there. And it actually was okay, but it was a little bit too hot. And when I decided I wanted more peppers, I thought, well, I don't want to do jalapeno, so that's why I went with poblano.
I grew habanero peppers.
Oh, those are the killers.
Oh, they are. And
I think those are officially the hottest peppers of all.
I think they say there's a couple they say is worse, but I've never, I just grew them that one year. Actually, I pickled some and I preserved some in olive oil. Just put them in a pint jar and fill it up with olive oil and let them sit there and ferment in the olive oil. And that was pretty good. But I had taken some down, was visiting down at my mom's and visiting some friends at a bar. And I had them there. And this kid, his mother was Mexican, so I assumed he knew what they were. And he picked one of them up and started eating it. So I didn't say a word. I just let him do it.
Oh, no.
And he went over. He didn't say a thing to me. He went over and kissed his wife. And she's the one that come over and slapped me upside the
head. Habanero. That's what I used to use. I invented a drink one time called the Sun Stingray, I called it. And I used habanero peppers and I would soak them in vodka and I would sit them out in the sun for like several days, you know, I got a big oversized mason jar, you know, like a big one, and pour in the vodka and then a whole bunch of habanero peppers and then let it sit in the sun. And then I would serve it with grapefruit juice. And I called that the stingray. So you got the sting of the hot peppers and the ray of the citrus and the sunshine. I thought that was ingenious, the stingray.
That was, yeah. Did you get anybody wanting seconds?
Yeah, you know what? I used to go in those days when I was doing that. Mary and James Carville, they had a big farm out in rural Virginia, out there near Strasburg, and they would have parties every now and then. And I just made a big batch of that when they invited us, and I took it out there. And Mary in particular was just fascinated with it. And so she became a big fan of the stingray. That got me invited to their parties from then on, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because she said, now you got to bring your stingrays, which got to be kind of a chore because then I'd have to make a batch every time I went. We only went 4 or 5 times, but that was a big hit. At those parties.
I can see there's certain people would have to drink it, you know, and the rest of us, I enjoy hot and spicy stuff, but I like it in food rather than drink.
Yeah.
And I do want to be able to, you know, to eat something afterward without having to deal with the pain.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
But I've got.
Well, I guess some old pal Joe. I got a kick out of this. I can't get enough of old Trump. I guess I don't know what I'm going to do when he's gone. But
what's your response to the protests over the weekend? The No Kings protests.
I think it's a joke. I looked at the people; they're not representative of this country. And I looked at all the brand new signs paid for. I guess it was paid for by Soros and other radical left lunatics. It looks like it was. We're checking it out. The demonstrations were very small, very ineffective, and the people were whacked out. When you look at those people, those are not representative of the people of our country.
Mr. President, besides San Francisco,
By the way, I'm not a king.
I'm just like the ominous part of that is when he said Soros paid for the signs. We're checking that out. Now, does he really have Kash Patel and the FBI checking out whether George Soros paid for the signs at the No Kings? They may be. That might be happening.
With him, it just depends on who's in the office and what he happens to say.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this is that, well, I'm pissed at this, the different people that they're bringing up on charges. I think he's expressed being irritated and pissed. And so, yes, sir, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they haven't got either the ability or the balls to ignore him. I think that's it's one thing to say yes, sir. It's another thing not to go into your office and actually do something.
Well, these daily, you get a sense of that what you're talking about from these daily just circus that he holds in the Oval at the White when he brings the reporters in and just yammers, endlessly, and it's getting to be almost a daily thing. But you get a sense of that because the cabinet's all sitting around, and he'll sit there, and I mean, some of what you're talking about happens in real time. He'll say, so and so, why don't you look into that? And I'm thinking, yeah, now they got to go look into it because he just on national TV just gave them a stupid order.
Well, I guess they've not learned, or they're scared to death to say, yes, sir, Mr. President, we're on that one. And, just go back in there and ignore it for a while. And
when we were watching him when Zelensky was in the cabinet room the other day, you made such a good point, and it turned out to be so true, is that was, his demeaning attitude toward Zelensky was every bit as rude as the public meeting when he yelled at him.
Yeah.
The way he was so dismissive of Zelensky and belittled him, really. But he wasn't actually. But then we found out later, after what we watched publicly, when they finally went into their private meeting, he did yell at him and threw things and tore up maps and whatever, So
you feel a little bit sorry for somebody like Zelensky because he's got no choice.
Yeah.
That's kind of his job, is sit there and take the shit and hope he can get crumbs.
Yeah. I mean, in that first meeting that you're talking about, what happens, what he learned is what others have learned in private meetings or in public is if you challenge Trump, he'll just get worse. He'll double down like he always says. And that was the trouble, is Zelensky kind of fought back in that meeting, that other one, the public one that we're talking about. And that's when Trump just really bore in on him, And that's what people have learned is if you try to challenge him at all, he actually gets worse.
But it's we're going to, every time I'm sitting here reading stuff, just like today with the post office here at post office, that they're cutting back mail delivery in rural areas way more than they are in urban areas, just simply because it's more expensive. And this is the guy that, this is a plan the guy that Trump appointed back in his first term put it together. And
oh yeah, you know, he was he was my other alumni in the Trump administration. We went to the same college.
Yeah.
me and that guy, I forget his name, he was a postmaster general you're talking about, and Pam Bondi, we all went to the same school. But I didn't know that about cutting back on rural. I mean,
yeah, that was I just read it today, and they're talking about that they've already, as part of the plan to cut back mail service, and said what they've done is they've quit using airmail delivery cargo and are going exclusively ground, so that by the time it gets, and the way they do it, if you ever follow this stuff, is, you know, they send it from one central location to another, and then finally it gets out here to our world. And and if you're out here in rural Missouri, out here in the country, you're one more step past me.
Oh yeah.
You know, when it gets to Springfield, at least I get it delivered that day.
Yeah.
And then it's one more day. So you can have 4 or 5 days on some stuff pretty easy.
And there's probably not enough money making potential for any private company to step into that void, I suppose.
And that was part of the article, said that they have basically seen an 80% reduction in the number of letters they actually send out to these households, you know.
Yeah.
In these areas. And it's just not cost effective to offer the service. Well, that's why we have the post office. If it was cost effective, UPS would do it.
Yeah.
But like I say, I think there's a number of different things that the Democrats could use to leverage a few votes out here in the rural counties in different states. I just don't know if they're willing to put the effort in.
They just got to pay attention and show up.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's just sitting there. When you look at the SNAP benefits, you know, it was 20% of them go to people over 60. 40% of them go to children.
What's the percentage to children?
40.
40.
Yeah.
20% over 60. Huh.
And then 40% to adults, but you know, every one of those child has at least one parent.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably under 60.
Well, that's like Medicaid too. I mean, you know, people don't realize just how many older people in nursing homes depend on that. It's your grandparents. It's not some drug addict getting Medicaid.
Well, drug addicts don't get Medicaid because they don't take time to sign up. Although I will say this much, my brother-in-law has signed up for Medicaid. He evidently needs it now.
Huh.
But he's a meth. It was, my sister was telling me they're divorced and been divorced, but she said you wouldn't know it, but when he gets in trouble, he calls her. And So she had to take him to the hospital because he had, I don't know, an ulcer or something was bleeding real bad, some kind of growth in his stomach. They ended up putting like 4 units of blood in him. He's bleeding that bad.
Gee.
And then he turned around a week later and had a stroke, and he's in the hospital again.
And he doesn't have insurance.
But he's on Medicaid. That was
he has gotten it.
At least he had Medicaid now. So, but yeah, he's one of the drug addicts on Medicaid. He was telling her, he's mumbling, and he said it sounded to her like he said something about math, or he was on math or whatever. And he
on math.
Turned out he was saying, "I'm on meth again." Tell him the doctor.
Be sure and tell the doctor.
Yeah. I don't know. The people I don't know what you do with people like him, and he's actually fairly productive. He's worked a pretty steady most of his life. But there's that couple that my other sister's taking care of one of their boys. The other boy got old enough that he got too much problem, so she sent him back to mom. He was 17 and he was stealing stuff and so on. But she still got the one, and they basically, it's a couple, one of them has getting disability, and they basically spend everything on drugs and live in a tent.
Wow.
And wouldn't do any good to give them money.
Yeah.
And I'm not for sure what you do, and how do you make them unhomeless?
Yeah.
You know, that's why I can think of a few things, but unless you threaten them with jail time, I guess they're not going to do it. Or if they are, they're not going to follow the basic rules that a homeless shelter would have, which is one, you can't do drugs here.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what to do on a person like that. Give them a little food once in a while. And that's about it. And of course, they take their food stamps and sell them for their SNAP benefits. She gets SNAP benefits for the boy and never even takes care of him. Doesn't even offer to buy food to feed him or anything.
We all this talk that they're trying to scare everybody about. I just remember that coming up in past shutdowns is about we got to reopen the government or people are going to lose their SNAP benefits. But I remember in the past, all they got to do is just promise the states they'll be reimbursed and nobody loses their benefits.
Yeah. Well, I think the states administer it.
Yeah.
So
and they get the money, a lot of it from the federal government. And so if the federal government, that's what they're threatening is, that money's going to dry up if the Democrats don't sign on to reopening the government. But in the past, all the states need is a promise for it's like furlough. It's like the furloughed workers, they, and then the states will just keep distributing the benefit.
Well, there's a way around it. And since the states pay for it and they get reimbursed, there is no hard line.
Yeah.
It's whatever they want to do.
This is the only time Republicans ever bring up SNAP benefits in a positive way, as in support of SNAP benefits. This is the only time they ever support SNAP benefits is when they can use it in a shutdown debate.
Hey, it's and they're losing the argument. They can't.
I really think they are. Yeah.
Well, one is everybody
you can tell
knows,
they know it too.
Everyone knows the Republicans don't care about SNAP benefits.
Yeah.
You can't sit there and say, "Oh, we're worried about those poor people not getting their food because Republicans don't care. And we all know this. Even the Republicans know this.
And all they got to do is sign on to extending those subsidies for Obama health insurance premiums, and the Democrats will come along, and they're ready to do it. Speaker Johnson's got a bill for it, and so does Thune, but they can't. Not only they cannot get Trump to sign on to that, but not only that, they can't even get him into a conversation. Is from what I'm reading, is he just doesn't even want to talk about it. Period. And until he decides to weigh in, this just goes on.
Well, I think I don't know what to do about her. Here's the thing. It used to be you could say Trump would take everything right up to the edge of the cliff and then magically walk away.
Yeah.
And pretend like, he never intended that in the first place. Now, he has so many mental problems, I think, that I'm not for sure. It's a little like we were talking about Zelensky, that this is a challenge and he's not going to back away from it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't see that there is harm unless it gets into his pocket,
Well, he's incapable of empathy. I mean, he just actually that's another clip that I have replayed here a couple of times, is this when he gets asked about civilians in Ukraine.
President Putin on Thursday, did you discuss his ongoing attacks on civilian areas in Ukraine?
Yeah.
Did you say cut it out? Did you say show an article of good faith to me?
I did. But as you know, most of the people dying are soldiers. The soldiers that
so civilians, we don't care about civilians. 50,000 civilians have been killed or injured in Ukraine, but he's more worried about their soldiers.
He is what he is.
But that just comes from a complete lack of empathy. I mean, it's not just a talking point or a strategic point. He just really, when he talks about civilians, when it's convenient to him to talk about them, he sounds like he cares, but I don't think he does.
I think the only thing I know of that will end this is that enough congressmen are going to do polling after this election, after that Virginia and New Jersey election, are going to start doing some local polling and are coming back and going, my seat's in danger.
Yeah.
And this is part of the problem. The polls say this is part of the problem.
Yeah, there was a story in the Hill. Let's see, I had it here somewhere. Just in the last couple, here it is. Vulnerable House Republicans urge Johnson to address Obamacare subsidies. And the article's all about how a lot of them have gone to Johnson, and that's why they have put a bill together to extend those subsidies, but they cannot get Trump to focus on it. And that's what would end the shutdown right there. Mm-hmm. Democrats have said that from the opening salvo. But he just does. His problem is he's got to figure out some way to do that and make it look like he won. If they can figure that out, then he might sign on to it. If he can cave on those premium subsidies and declare victory, then he might go along with it.
I think if the House would have their vote, and it would clear the Senate, that if it got on Trump's agenda where Trump has to take responsibility, I think he would figure out a way to go along with it.
Yeah.
But until right now, he can just sit back and say, well, it's not my problem.
Yeah.
It's.
But I think you're right. I think that is what the old Trump would do. But this new Trump, he's just into diving off those cliffs.
That's a little like I was saying. I think he's got mental problems, and I think that affects everything. And I don't know how do you handle a crazy person?
Yeah.
Well, how do you handle a crazy person with a shotgun?
Yeah, I think that's what Mike Johnson goes to sleep and wakes up every day wondering, how do you handle a crazy person?
It could be. And the only reason Mike Johnson can keep his job is nobody else wants it.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of hit that point that there's nobody who can get elected but wants it.
Yeah. Well, we're at the 90-minute mark. I think I'll wrap it up here.
Oh, okay.
See if we can.
Well, I was kind of hoping your friend would show up. And
I did
have
too.
A nice
I don't know what
discussion about local politics in Virginia.
I'll have to get it. I'll keep at it. I'll keep at him. I'm also trying to get Mudcat, my friend Mudcat from Virginia. He's technically challenged, and he's going to try and figure it out maybe next week.
Yeah.
So both those guys are fun to talk to. So I'll just have to.
Yeah. There are people. Here's our problem is that we reach 300 or 400 people, and there are other people that'll have a better audience, and
yeah,
maybe not as nice or smart, but
yeah, but and of course a lot of people they're not interested in crowds, just good conversation. So I don't know. They're kind of like herding cats in a parking lot.
Yeah. Well, that's like getting me to show up. Oh, I better get my applesauce canned. So
all right, good luck.
Take care.
I can taste that just hearing about it. All righty.
Bye.
So
Okay, I'm Lady Mau Mau, Craig's built-in emergency brake. If this wasn't enough for you, sign up for the newsletter. It's free, it's thoughtful, and it occasionally makes sense.